Hello and good afternoon. I'm Dr. Sheila Preston and I'm the founder of Thriving Facilitators. And Thriving Facilitators we work with heart-centered practitioners who work in community and educational settings. And today I have with me here Ali Franks, who's also a member of Thriving Facilitators. So we're going to talk about Ali's work and then also about why she joined the membership. So afternoon, Ali.
Hi, yeah, good, thank you.
Good. Well, thanks for coming on. And I thought we would maybe start by maybe you could introduce yourself and the work that you do, and just tell us about what you do and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm a applied drama practitioner who is currently working as a full-time lecturer at university, teaching applied drama at undergraduate level. Yeah, so I've got quite a lot of years of experience in education settings. Before I was a practitioner solely, I was teaching in schools, then got into sort of community arts practice, developed developed my work really with working mostly with young people around emotional health and well-being, but in lots of other areas as well. And then came to the university to teach, which is what I've been doing for the last 6 years.
And so you've got the practitioner background and practice, and you've got your work as a lecturer as well in an institution. And I was just sort of wondering, I'm sure that people watching will identify if they've come from your backgrounds, but what would you consider to be the main challenges of working in the role of in higher education or in your practitioner role?
So in terms of the main challenges, I think for me the challenge was coming from a place of practice where I'd been before I came to the university. I was working with an organisation where at times I was the only practitioner seemed to be going out and doing work in community, and at other times there was lots of us, and so especially towards the end I felt quite like I wasn't freelance, but it felt like I was freelance because I was developing a lot of work and setting up a lot of practice. And I think just really kind of, I don't know what the word is, but really drilling down into my practice. And I felt I got to a point where I felt quite comfortable being a practitioner. It probably only took 11 years, but I got there. And then I got to the university and realised that I didn't know how to talk about what I did at all, and came into a really interesting place of trying to negotiate the role of lecturer and facilitator, and where do I sit, because I'm teaching something that's about facilitation and I'm teaching people, and I've spent years working as a facilitator, not a teacher. So so I'm trying to really negotiate the role of facilitator, lecturer. Who am I? Where do I sit in this? What have I got to offer? Have I got anything to offer? Do I know anything? That's kind of where I started at the uni.
And is that a kind of ongoing challenge or tension sometimes for people like yourselves who identify as practitioners and have a particular pedagogy and way of working, and then how that sits alongside the higher education environment?
Definitely, it definitely is, and still now. And definitely, because there's a role that we have to do as a lecturer, and it's quite at the end of the day there needs to be assessments that are passed, and people need to get through a year, and they need to achieve on an academic level. But the reality is that we're working with people. We're working with people in, at the moment in 2020, in a time when we are facing so many challenges. Our young people are coming to us from all sorts of backgrounds, all different places in the world, and it just feels wrong to not facilitate them as people, as a group, to find themselves within the work. And I think there's a pressure to get results in any academic or educational setting. Even teachers in schools, it's the same. And yet what we find in front of us are people who are here because they want to do this kind of work, but at the same time they want to grow as well, and they want to become the best version of themselves through their study. They're investing a lot of money, they're investing a lot of time, they're investing a lot of emotion in it. So my gut response is to go in as a facilitator and work with people on a slightly deeper level, I suppose, that you can't assess in in an end of module assessment.
Yeah, and go on.
No, I was going to say that's just a challenge, and I know I've spoken to you all about it a lot. Just that challenge of what do I need to do here? What's the best thing that I can do here? Am I doing enough? Am I doing, all those sorts of questions?
Yeah, and from my experience of working generally with my clients, that when there's a dissonance there, that can feel really challenging, and the challenge is finding a way to kind of make those different kind of, I guess, values or goals, especially if they've been set outside of you, to kind of make them work alongside each other, because that feeling of being dissonance is really hard.
I think that's absolutely right, and it's that dissonance in values, and in working in a system that's really I'm trying to think of the word, but it's been set. It's been going for years. University systems have been going for years. They run very differently now. Their values as a whole are, and the university I work for, the values I really adhere to, and I think they're wonderful. But the practice is quite difficult, actually, when you're on the ground to do that. And I think I've always prided myself in being a person-centered practitioner and wanting people to achieve their best for them and feel good about themselves in a space, and it's finding that balance. And I think it's possible, and I think you can do it. And I think the bit of my job that I love the most is seeing my graduates walk across the stage, and I say this to them often at the end of their 3 years, and just seeing these amazing, incredible, beautiful people who've had a wonderful journey. But I think they probably know the value of that in a way that's more than a piece of paper with their mark on it. And I think, and that's it, isn't it? It's the journey. It's not the end result. Maybe as a facilitator, I'm quite process driven, and a qualification is quite ends driven, and that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I really understand that. Obviously, from my own background in education as well. Yeah. The other thing I was going to ask you about was the topic of supervision and support, and I know that supervision for lecturers is not really a thing necessarily, except that I know that various practitioners probably are familiar with that term, because I think you're quite familiar with how you've had that experience of supervision in the past. So I just sort of wondered how you feel about supervision and support for facilitators, but also where the possibilities are for lecturers as well, who are often similarly working in really like challenging settings, dealing with dissonance and being quite overwhelmed with workload and all of those sorts of challenges, which can really kind of throw up all sorts of issues for practice. So I just wondered what you thought about supervision.
It's really important, and I think in the creative arts practice, or as a lot of the people that come to Thriving Facilitators, not just artists, but as people that work with people in community. And I think in the past, supervision has been something that's been seen to, if you're a counsellor or a psychotherapist, you have a supervisor. It's a clinical supervisor, and more recently, it's becoming more accepted that actually anyone working in the front line with real people and in a kind of heart-centered practice needs that space, and it's not, I think in the past it's been seen as a luxury, like, oh, we're lucky you can have supervision, and but I don't think it is a luxury. I think it's a necessity. And I know before I joined the university, in the organisation that I worked at, we used to build in supervision costs into our funding applications if we were working with a group that we may feel that the practitioner was at risk, and it was generally project based, the supervision, so that would be built in. But if we really needed supervision, then the company would supply that for us, and we had a supervisor that understood our work, didn't come from an arts background, but came from a counselling background, but really understood our work, and it was invaluable. And And when I had it, it made a huge amount of difference. And I know there was one situation where I was working in a secure unit with some it was quite a deep project in terms of what it demanded of me as a facilitator. I'd never worked in this this sort of space before. I was co-facilitating. I wasn't on my own, and the project ran for 10 weeks, and it was very much successful. And then for me, about 4 or 5 weeks later, my head just caved in, and I just had this. I think it was like a mini breakdown, but and I know that it was because I hadn't dealt with all the stuff that was going on whilst I was going and working with those people. Now, luckily, and it was my fault because I didn't ask for supervision, and I had the option there at the time, and was really lucky. But you know, a lot of people are freelance and they don't have the opportunity. A lot of companies can't afford to put supervision in place. It's actually incredibly expensive for a funding bid to then put sort of supervision costs in. But yeah, I think it's something that we need to see as essential rather than a luxury going forward. And I think in terms of uni, when I'm teaching my students, we learn kind of peer supervision techniques where once they go out into the community and they're out in their settings, that we all come back together once a week. And I kind of run or facilitate a kind of peer supervision session that is, you know, it's really key for them, and they have major insights and moments where they don't feel alone and where they feel like they're understood, where they can offer support and advice to others. So it's a really it's a key part of how I teach now as well.
So I guess what you're saying is that you think it's really essential, but I think also what I'm hearing is that there are lots of different kinds of supervision and lots of different kinds of ways in which we can get support. And one of the things that Varshini said yesterday was about kind of, you know, how we take the plunge to share about our experience, and how our own imposter syndrome can get in the way of just feeling okay to just share about honestly and openly what's happening in our work, but how important that is. So I guess there is about finding the space that works for you, but that the message is that it's really important that people get that support, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really interesting that Vash said that, because I think there's this, I really believe we live in a time where we have to show only the best side of ourselves.
Yes.
And it's really difficult to say, I was really scared and I didn't know what to do and it went really badly. And, you know, and I can think of moments in my practice where I've just stood there and the only thing going on in my head are a list of expletives because I don't know what to do. And yet, like that, there's this sense of like, you can't talk about that because I want to get the work, I want to get the jobs, I want to appear to be competent. But actually, by talking about those moments, then we can enter into real deep reflective practice, and that's where the magic happens, isn't it? That's where we can grow.
Yeah. And I think we should get on to Thriving Facilitators, because as you're talking there, I'm thinking, yes, and that's what Thriving Facilitators is doing. It's helping us to actually lean into those moments when we don't know what to do and actually trust ourselves in the present moment. So there's all of that as well. But yeah, let's kind of rewind a little bit. So what made you join Thriving Facilitators? Because I think you were one of the very first members. I think we were having some coaching, and I said, I've got this idea at the end of it. I said, I've got this idea. Do you think you might be interested? And it was literally still an idea. So I'm just sort of curious about, what made you join Thriving Facilitators? And then also kind of, what do you, it's evolved now because it's been going for not nearly a year now. So what do you get from Thriving Facilitators? As you're still here with us.
Yeah, I'm still here. We were having coaching, and when you said about it, I thought that sounds just brilliant. Partly, you know, to give you some credit, the coaching with you was really valuable, and I think the thought of you running this group was like, okay, I know it's going to come from this place where I share the values that you've got, and I felt that you were. I feel that you are really good at holding space. So just the thought that, okay, this is this is going to be a really valuable space, but also that I'm based in South Wales, and there's an amazing community of artists here who are highly supportive. So it's not like there aren't people around me, although we get caught in the business of our daily lives. But there's been something really wonderful about joining, which is just I've met people from all over the UK and various parts of the world who are saying the same things as me at times, and sharing those experiences. But yeah, I think I just wanted to be part of that community. I wanted to have a space that wasn't connected to my work, that wasn't maybe connected to, I guess people that just didn't know me, where I could come and just exist without having to be anything that, anything special, and just be in that space. And, knowing that in university, we're not going to have supervision. We've got access to counselling if we need it or whatever. But that idea that I could have supervision in this job was a little bit revolutionary. It was like, oh, hold on, this could take everything to a whole new level. So I think that's, in a roundabout way, that's kind of why I joined. Yeah.
And what so just to clarify for people who are watching, it's not all supervision, it's not all kind of framed as supervision, although, and I guess one of my debates with myself, I guess, is how much of it do we name as, do we just say, look, yeah, this is supervision, or how much, or do we speak about it as reflective practice? Just knowing that people have different connotations with the word supervision. So in a way, if someone's not sure about supervision, if you think reflective practice, then that possibly also sort of characterizes what this is about. So we have some sessions once a month that are specifically called supervision or reflective practice, but we also have other sessions that are more open workshops that are around a theme that we're looking at that month. So on this coming Tuesday, the theme of the month is vicarious resilience, and just sort of looking at the kind of the kind of antithesis to this idea of vicarious trauma that we're often looking at in terms of our work in communities. Let's also look at vicarious resilience. So that becomes a kind of holding theme that will just influences the discussion that we have, and kind of I will come in and share some thoughts that I've had, and then that will create a discussion. So there's a discussion stroke workshop aspect, as well as more specifically, let's look at our practice and moments of practice. And then we have, so I'm going to, I just wanted to kind of make that distinction, I guess. And then there's the recorded sessions vaults as well, or where people can come in and catch up on different sessions. So I'm just thinking, Ali, what kind of, are there any sort of shifts that you felt in your own approach, or just in your own understanding for yourself that you've experienced as a result of being part of the membership?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think that we did the visioning day, and that was just brilliant. So yeah, when you were saying about all the, I sort of really focused on vision, but yeah, reflective practice, supervision, that visioning day where we spent a whole day, and obviously it was on Zoom because that's where we all live these days. But it was fantastic. And yeah, I had some real moments then. I've just got my pad open in front of me here as well, but some real moments of insight, I suppose. And I'm a great one, and I say often to Sheila to you that I will be like, oh, I get it intellectually, I get it, but I don't get it. And I've had a load of moments where I'm just like, okay, yeah, I've had a shift, some insight moment has happened where it's just gone a little bit deeper. And yeah, and I don't know, it's just given me a huge amount of confidence in my practice to be vulnerable, a bit more vulnerable, and a bit more allowing and accepting of who I am, and I'm so interested in all of this, but I think in an intellectual way, and I think I'm having real shifts on a different level, and I think that's what I've got from coming here, and those shifts are moving my life on in different ways. I'm approaching my days differently. I'm thinking about things in a very different way that I think is given me some, you know, it's interesting that the theme is resilience, but I feel like I've got more resilience. I feel like I've got more trust in myself as a result. I feel like I am enough, which is something that's been just huge for me. But all that kind of philosophy around, actually, when I show up in the space, I'm enough. And what's been wonderful for me is I can pass that on to the people and the students that I work with. But also, it's just been, and all the different levels of things. And the books that you've chosen for us to look at have been brilliant. And I know I missed the live book club last time, but we do it every month or every 2 months?
It's kind of in between that. Yeah, it's not religiously every month. It's about having time to kind of process. But we've got book club as well.
And just brilliant. I mean, the books you're picking aren't books that you would think, and I think they are. I'm loving that. It's making me read them, and it's making me really really think about that. And it's nice because it's not academic reading, it's like heart-based reading. And
so we're always working with that tension of that, like you say, the intellectual cognitive understanding that we get of something, and then that kind of heart-based change of heart is a thing that I'm kind of exploring at the moment. That when we have a change of heart about something, it's happening on a much deeper insight-based level. So we're looking at that sort of tension, and that can be quite challenging for academics. And so when we come along to the book club, it's about, right, we're going to just put our academic head to side and try and see if we can look at it through a different lens. So that's the interesting playful tension between it all, I guess.
There's an interesting one in the last book that we read. The author said early on, and I'm sat there with my pen and my little post-it notes, and I like to make notes and stick them in. And then the author says early on, please don't make notes, and please don't treat this like an academic thing. Just read the book. And I was a little bit like, I feel like I've just taken away all my scaffolding of safety. To read something and allow it to, like, you know, to sink in, as opposed to make notes all the way through and intellectualize it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next book is we're looking at Byron Katie's Loving What Is. So that kind of again picks up the theme on one of the themes that we're kind of sitting with in the membership. So it's I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's great. Is there anything that you would say to people? So the membership is open at the moment until Monday. So it's open for people to join. Is there anything that you think should be said about the membership that we haven't already, or what would you say to someone who was unsure about whether to join or not?
I would say I would absolutely say, and it's interesting because we're in a time where, I mean, most of we're just coming out of lockdown in Wales. You're in lockdown in England now for another month. It's another time of isolation. For many people, a time where work might be a bit quiet for some people as well. And I would say, for me now, this has become essential. It's not a luxury. And I think we weigh up in life what are our luxury items or what are our essential things. And I think as a reflective practitioner, as a person who wants to grow and evolve in my role, then I think that being part of this membership, there's nothing else around like this, and for me this is essential to keeping me going, and not just keeping me going, but allowing me to do that with a level of joy and a level of reflection that maybe I wasn't having before. So I would say, if you're thinking of joining, get in contact with Sheila and maybe have a chat. But I would say absolutely that you've got absolutely nothing to lose, but a huge amount, and that sounds so cheesy, to gain from this. And well, I wouldn't be without it. And it's been essential. And I just think back to early lockdown in UK, and we were having like lots of sort of just lives in the day, and we were just all connecting with each other, and it was like a breath of fresh air from the craziness that was going on, that we were all able to just come together. And I think there's something about the connectedness that you've established within Thriving Facilitators, this community that's a real sense of community and connecting, which is the opposite of isolating. And I think that for me is, yeah, it's been invaluable. So I would urge anyone who's thinking about it, who's a practitioner, who's dealing with people all the time and is sometimes feeling overwhelmed and run down, to just, yeah, come along, join us. Even just join for a month, see how you go. Like, if it's not for you, then it's not for you. But for me, it's been just, yeah, a massively important part of my year, actually. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's great and beautiful to hear you speak like that. Yeah, it is a wonderful community. Yeah, I'm very proud to be part of it and to have been played a part in, you know, help shaping that. And members who join are also part of shaping that, because it's still in its early stages, in its first year, so it's evolving and new things are coming in all the time. So, so thanks so much, Ali, for this chat. It's been great.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, I'll see you in the membership. See you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Bye.